Hello, I'm Tim Hinkle, the Assistant Commissioner for the Division of Modal Planning and Program Management at the Minnesota Department of Transportation. Welcome to this four-part video series on transportation asset management, developed by the Federal Highway Administration's Transportation Asset Management Expert Task Group, or the ETG. As chairman of the ETG, it's my hope that you'll find this video helpful as you implement an asset management program in your organization. Through the ETG, the Federal Highway Administration is promoting transportation asset management with its partners at the American Association of State and Transportation Officials, Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, and the Transportation Research Board. Transportation asset management is important for any agency that plans, owns, or operates a transportation network. Asset management is a strategic and systematic process of operating, maintaining, and improving physical assets, with a focus on both engineering and economic analysis based upon quality information to identify a structured sequence of maintenance, preservation, repair, rehabilitation, and replacement actions that will achieve and sustain a desired state of good repair of the life cycle of the assets at minimum practicable costs. In order to support the growing interest in implementing asset management and the federal laws and regulations concerning asset management, FHWA established the ETG with the mission to support the increased interest in transportation asset management in order to sustain our nation's transportation infrastructure. The ETG membership includes representatives of state DOTs, the Transportation Research Board, metropolitan planning organizations, academia, and international transportation officials. It also regularly engages representatives from transit agencies and local governments. The ETG provides one of the few forums in which representatives from these various disciplines can meet and discuss how to coordinate their efforts to support sound asset management. The main activities of the ETG are to, number one, describe a framework for the financially sustainable management of infrastructure that integrates asset management with performance management, risk management, long-term financial planning, and sound stewardship of our nation's transportation assets. Second, identify strategies to advance asset management practices. Third, support states in their change management efforts. Fourth, address gaps in our collective asset management practices. And last, provide a forum for discussing emerging asset management issues and agency needs. This four-part video series represents one of many ETG outreach activities. The 4 videos in this series and the companion white papers cover the following topics: integrating transportation asset management into agency business practices, developing human capital and organizational culture to support asset management, integration of transportation asset management into the planning process, and defining cross-asset decision-making. Look for the video series and a wide range of resources, including more information about the ETG, at the Transportation Asset Management Information Portal at tam.transportation.org. MAP 21 began and the FAST Act continues the focus upon transportation asset management. This focus is spreading beyond only state transportation agencies and is increasing among metropolitan planning organizations, transit agencies, and local governments. At least 3 factors support the increased role of asset management within the planning process. First is the general rise in interest in asset management. MAP 21 in some ways is a catalyst for asset management, but in other ways it only codifies the practices that have become increasingly common. For many years now, agencies have recognized asset management as a sound way to manage infrastructure. Asset management is steadily increasing as a good way to do business. Second, federal statute accelerates this interest by requiring states and MPOs to develop performance-based transportation plans and programs. These both implicitly and explicitly drive the focus upon asset management. Third, the inclusion of condition targets crystallizes the focus upon achieving and sustaining sound asset condition levels. The federally required targets provide benchmarks by which federal, state, and local officials will judge the adequacy of infrastructure conditions. Although transportation officials always have focused on general goals such as achieving a state of good repair, the federal targets now bring urgency and specificity to achieving infrastructure conditions. Since the early 1960s, the planning process focused on critical issues such as land use, safety, selecting projects, promoting transportation alternatives, and protecting the environment. To those existing priorities is added the communal responsibility to sustain transportation assets for future generations. The planning process always has devoted resources and funds to maintaining and repairing assets. However, the responsibility for ensuring the condition of an asset generally was left to the asset's owner. Project sponsors such as state transportation agencies, transit authorities, or local governments approached the MPOs for amendments to the long-range plan or transportation improvement program for individual projects. Now, however, the region's plan as a whole will include a focus upon whether the entire network of assets is achieving condition and performance targets. Through the asset management plan, safety plans, and the transit planning process, broader regional targets will be set and the region as a whole will participate in achieving them. The asset management plan targets are likely to play an important role in the transportation planning process. These targets help to define whether infrastructure is in good condition. If a region easily surpasses its condition targets, funds can be directed to additional projects to support mobility, transportation alternatives, economic development, and other priorities. If, however, the region's infrastructure is below target, that recognition could result in priority going to projects that repair and restore assets in good condition. The targets also can spur a regional discussion of the adequacy of infrastructure investment. The targets will provide a common language for understanding and discussing asset conditions. A given target will be the benchmark that defines whether conditions are sound or if they are not. As regions weigh the cost of different asset conditions, they can make trade-offs that help them to define how good they need their assets to be. What condition does the region want, and how much will it cost to sustain them? The ETG recognizes that asset owners and MPOs always have maintained their assets. We do not want to infer they have not. However, we think there will be a noticeable increase in the degree to which asset condition targets will influence the planning process. The federal targets are focused upon the national highway system, which includes the largest and most expensive assets. Although most of the NHS is managed by state DOTs, the large cost of NHS rehabilitation projects could consume substantial portions of state and even regional program budgets. These projects may play a disproportionately large role in developing fiscally constrained state and regional transportation programs. As a result, the focus upon targets, forecasts of future conditions, and strategies to sustain assets are likely to rise in prominence within the planning and programming process. The ETG members anticipate a constant balancing in the planning process between asset investment needs and the needs of mobility, air quality, freight, the environment, safety, and other priorities. Weighed with those priorities will be the investments to sustain condition targets for transit assets, bridges, pavements, intelligent transportation systems, and other assets. Closely related to physical assets are the data assets. Competing for resources are likely to be programs that collect, interpret, and disseminate asset condition data. The more that MPOs seek to make performance-driven decisions, the more its members will seek data to evaluate investment alternatives. The ETG anticipates a decision-making process that continually evaluates regional social, economic, environmental, safety, and mobility needs, while also weighing the need to sustain assets in sound condition. One of the first steps that MPOs may take is to formally adopt asset management policies that recognize as a high priority the sustaining of the region's infrastructure to targeted levels. Such policies already exist with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission near San Francisco and the Puget Sound Regional Council in Seattle. Again, such policies are not new, but they are likely to become more precise. Policies such as Fix It First are common among many planning agencies. What is likely to evolve are policies that more precisely define through condition target what it means to fix an asset. What often closely follows these policies is increased partnering between the MPO, the state DOT, and the local governments. The DOT can assist because of its long experience with collecting, analyzing, mapping, and forecasting asset conditions. This experience can help the MPO evaluate ways for it to collect asset condition data. Local governments play a critical role. They own many of the assets and are experienced with their inventories and condition. The challenge is to develop common asset condition inventories and databases that serve the entire region, at least for assets on the federal aid system. As the regional planning process increases its focus on asset condition, the MPO may adopt policies that give priority to projects that help the region attain its condition targets. Project selection priorities may evolve to encourage preservation projects as well as rehabilitation and replacement ones. The MPOs in the Bay Area and in Greater Reno, Nevada, incentivize sponsors to pursue projects that keep good assets in good condition. These preservation projects lower costs overall by reducing the need for expensive replacement projects. Presently, the preservation incentives focus primarily upon pavements, but the same approaches lend themselves to managing bridges and other assets. By embracing asset management, regional partners are expanding the already important concept of sustainability. MPOs often support efforts that increase the sustainability of the human and natural environment. Asset management supports the sustainability of the physical or built environment as well. Australian and British asset managers referred to this concept as international equity, or the idea that today's users should pay for the physical assets they consume. If they don't, they're passing on costs and liabilities to the next generation. By embracing asset management, regional planning agencies can expand today's focus upon sustaining assets for future users. Sustainability is increased when preservation of assets becomes a planning priority. State, regional, and local planning partners are likely to increase the collection of condition data and summarize it into decision support tools. MPOs for many years published reports about land use trends, condition levels, crash locations, air quality, and water quality. Added to their portfolio of planning products is likely to be the analysis of bridge, pavement, transit, and other assets condition. The planning agencies in Greater Cleveland, San Francisco, and Reno coordinate the collection of asset condition data and its analysis. The analyses indicate which assets are in need of preservation, which need rehabilitation, or which need only minor maintenance. They also produce cost estimates to communicate the amount of investment necessary to keep the region's assets at their desired condition target. The Bay Area MTC and the Reno Area Regional Transportation Commission provide years' worth of pavement condition trend lines. In the Bay Area, the data span more than 2 decades. These data provide long-term context for the change in conditions over many years. The Bay Area pavements remain barely above the acceptable condition level, and the MPO warns that its regional pavement network could deteriorate rapidly if investments are not sustained. It produces analysis such as seen here, in which each community is advised of its pavement conditions and what level of investment is needed to meet its targets. In the Reno area, pavement conditions improved substantially over 20 years ago when the region became concerned about its poor conditions. A core program in the regional planning process is a pavement preservation program that allocate funds for thin overlays and other treatments to preserve the region's pavements. These treatments are combined with complete street projects to achieve multiple regional priorities. Seen here is a snapshot of the MTC's Street Saver program, which is a locally accessible pavement management system. The MTC provides the management system at low cost to its members and assists them with training and data analysis. The data and management system have spread concepts of pavement management among the local communities. The region's long-range transportation plan and other reports include detailed discussion of the amount of investment needed by year to achieve sustainable asset conditions. The MTC's program has operated for more than 20 years and has become deeply ingrained in the regional planning process. It also supports advocacy for asset investment through its Street Fighter campaign. That is an information and advocacy effort to inform the community and legislators of the need for local infrastructure investment. The campaign reports past condition trends and warns of the consequences if investment levels are not increased. Also joining the suite of regional planning tools is likely to be the pavement and bridge forecast scenarios. MPOs are accustomed to supporting regional decision-making through its models for travel demand and emissions production. These powerful models help the community understand how travel demand will affect future mobility and how much air pollution its transportation program will generate. In the Reno, San Francisco, and Greater Detroit area, regional models also are used to estimate how much investment is needed to sustain the local pavement network. These models help elevate concern over pavement and bridge conditions from the purview of the local asset owner to the region as a whole. With a model forecast, the MPO board can better understand what level of investment is needed to keep its network in sound condition. The ETG believes that over time, more regional planning agencies will invest in programs to model its future bridge and pavement conditions. When future investment needs can be estimated, regional decision makers better understand the whole life costs of their assets. Presently, the upfront construction costs of assets is documented in regional plans and improvement programs. However, a natural evolution tends to occur once agencies begin to model their future asset investment needs. They often realize that the asset they build today will increase their maintenance costs in the not-too-distant future. With a longer planning horizon, the future maintenance costs of new assets become apparent. This recognition can lead to decision-makers understanding that the initial construction cost may be only a small part of a project's total cost. The ongoing costs of maintenance, operation, and eventual rehabilitation may exceed the cost of its original construction. An asset management plan can put onto an agency's balance sheet the long-term liabilities it faces when it expands its transportation network. Closely related to data collection and modeling is training. The MPOs in San Francisco and Reno provide training to their local partners to use the regional pavement management system. They organize efforts to update the regional pavement model and also support user groups and training programs. The ETG believes that it will become increasingly common for local governments to want to enhance their asset management expertise. The state DOT and regional planning agencies can play important roles in organizing and supporting asset management training. Although federal statutes focus upon federal aid routes, it is likely that asset management practices will spread to local governments as well. The same pressures to meet regional investment needs exist at the local level, and in many cases are even more acute. The ETG hopes that a natural evolution occurs when the local agencies that participate in the regional planning process adopt asset management practices for their own assets. The training and support that improves the regional planning process also can help local agencies. For many years, the transportation planning process focused most heavily on issues relating to capacity, mobility, air quality, and land use, and less so upon the condition of roads, bridges, and other assets. Now, transportation asset management is becoming a larger part of the transportation planning process. While this creates some new challenges, it also is likely to increase consideration of the long-term investment needs for sustaining assets. On the table with analysis of future congestion will also be analysis of the future state of roads, bridges, transit facilities, and other assets if they are not adequately maintained. When the condition of NHS assets was left solely to the responsibility of state DOTs, local agencies and MPOs had less imperative to address them. Now, central to the planning process will be consideration of the investment needs for the most basic of issues, preserving the existing transportation infrastructure. Owing to the open and collaborative planning process, it is likely that many more local decision makers will become aware of the investment needs to sustain infrastructure. It is also likely that the regional focus on asset management will convince more local governments to adopt asset management for their own infrastructure. In the years ahead, the focus on asset management in the planning process is likely to result in state, local, and regional governments having a stronger sense of the shared responsibility to manage their transportation assets. On behalf of the ETG, thank you for watching.